You are listening to Be Amplified, the podcast with Bri and Thais, episode 38.
Hey Amplifiers, welcome to Be Amplified, the podcast. My name is Thais.
And I'm Bri Thais. We are the co-founders of the Amplify Collective,
a movement aimed at radically disrupting how purpose-driven women connect and operate in the world.
Because we believe it's not just what you do, but who you are that matters.
Each week, join us for messages and interviews that will leave you feeling amplified and ready to change the world.
Let's do this.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hello! Hello, mateys. Hello.
Bri and Thais here, coming at you straight from the closet. So, I have a funny story for you.
What?
So I'm having people over tomorrow, right? You know,
yeah.
You're coming over.
Well, yes, I know, because I am the honorary attendee.
You're not the honorary attendee. You're the only required attendee. Like, everyone else was given a choice about coming. You have to come.
Yeah.
So last Friday, the week before I'm having people over, I get this text from a girlfriend that's like, hey, we're on our way.
Oh my God.
We'll be there in a half an hour. And so her and her husband came over and hung out with me. Luckily, I wasn't doing anything.
Luckily.
And we hung out and had a glass of champagne. But
is there a point to the story?
yeah, she and I talked a lot about our podcast. She's obsessed with our podcast.
Well, we are obsessed with you, baby.
Yeah.
With you, listeners.
She is lovely. And we were talking about us recording, and I was like, yeah, you know, we hang out in Thais's closet. And she was like, wait, do you actually hang out in Thais's closet? And I was like, yeah, we actually hang out in Thais's closet.
Like we're kidding? Like we don't really? Like,
yeah,
what do you mean?
She thought we were kidding, that we didn't actually like record in your closet. And I was like, no. We are actually sitting on meditation mats.
That's amazing.
And surrounded by Thais's
We really
clothes.
are, though. And Bri today enters my closet. It smells a little musty in here. You know what, bitch? No, I'm kidding. So I want to read.
But hold on. This is what it takes. Like, this
yeah.
is literally what it takes. I shit you not. Like, yeah. This is what it takes.
And
if you want to be successful, you got to do some crazy shit.
On the note, I want to read a review that we received for our podcast. From someone, I don't know if you guys know her. Her name is Bri Thais. She left a review on our podcast, and she shares, "This podcast is my favorite part of every Monday. I love that I get to jam with the best of the best and my bestie every week and deliver high caliber conversations to the world."
So if you want to be
what
like,
inspired you to leave a review on our own podcast?
if you want to be like Bri Thais, you should go leave a review for Be Amplified, the podcast right now. In fact, I give you permission to hit pause. You can pause this episode right now. Just hit pause, come back, go write us a review. And
be like Bri Thais.
Even if you don't like us, just leave us a review.
Positive review.
Care.
No, we care. We care very much. Well, I will say that we are officially now available for Android listeners as well. I don't know why it took us a fucking year before we made our podcast available for Android listeners. But it was so funny because I was sitting at home the other day and I was like, shit, my boyfriend can't listen to our podcast because he has an Android phone.
And he loves our podcast, by the way. He thinks that we're fucking hilarious.
He does, because I'm editing it and he's listening to it. He's amazing. Anyway, and then I'm like, wow, what presumptuous are we to believe that everybody in the world has an iPhone and that's Anyway, so I apologize to all you Android users. And
you now get to catch up.
So fucking leave us a review, bitch. Just kidding. But be like Bri Thais and leave us a review.
We should make that a hashtag. Be like Bri Thais.
Be like, no, please don't do it. We don't need your head to be already bigger than it is. Just kidding.
Enough.
So we have a really good topic for you all today.
And super exciting. This is our first sponsored episode. So
yes.
We are really excited to
share
up with you. Industrious has sponsored this episode. You'll hear a little bit more about them later on in the episode, but they're a phenomenal co-working space, and we love them.
Yeah, we're possibly doing a mixer at their space at some point in the future, which is really cool. Their space is amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and you guys get to have a free week by using...
Don't tell them. You have to listen to the...
Yeah,
you have to listen.
Right. But
keep listening.
Keep listening. There's a code that you can use. I bet you'll never guess what the code is to get a free week of co-working there. Okay, now that we've said that, we also have something that is super duper exciting, which is the doors for the Amplified Woman is open. We are so excited about the women that are joining this program. We cannot wait to start in just a couple more weeks. And we want to talk about one big element that inspired us to put together this program in this podcast episode today.
So what Thais and I get asked a lot, like, how do you guys manage it all? Like,
How do you have it all?
Yeah, how do you have it all? You guys have all these different moving parts and pieces. Each of you run 2 businesses. You know, you both have a thriving movement practice. You both have.
I like how you call it a movement practice.
Well, it is a movement practice. I don't exercise.
Spiritual people don't exercise. I don't
exercise. That quote right there. I'm gonna say it again in case you didn't hear it. Spiritual people don't exercise. We move.
We move.
That was really good.
Hashtag you're welcome.
We get asked a lot about how do we manage to do it all? How do we have it all? And so as you might have seen, the episode for today is called Having It All.
Yeah.
But we have a surprise for you.
We literally don't have it all. You can't have it all. And the idea of having it all is actually what's perpetuating a really broken system where we're being sold this idea that there are some women in the world that do have it all. And if we buy into their madly expensive programs and their madly expensive courses and things, then we're going to learn how to have it all. And then our life is going to be super easy.
And perfect.
And we're going to have the beautiful granite top kitchen counters with the white white
and
cabinets.
Instagram famous.
And we're going to have the perfect whitewash everything. And
the perfect husband and the perfect baby and all the perfect things.
I mean, it's really easy to be sold that. And I feel like entrepreneurs are being sold that more and more because we're recognizing and realizing how fucking hard entrepreneurship is. So when we see a holy grail of sorts, when we see a woman who's seemingly doing it so easily and having it all, we can't help but be sucked into the idea that somehow if we just do what they're doing, we're going to have it all. And so we kind of tricked you guys.
You're welcome.
Because the fact of the matter is, Bri and I don't have it all. And we're so...
We don't, and we don't believe in having it all.
Right.
Is also the other thing that's important.
Yeah. And so we're going to break down some of these concepts for you guys today and talk a little bit about how we navigate our life with boundaries and respect and how we, put things together in place so we're not feeling overwhelmed and crazy and like dying every single day, while simultaneously honoring the very real fact that our lives are truly messy, chaotic at times, exhilarating at most times.
Musty?
Oh, you're so funny, Bri. You're so funny.
I'll do what I can.
And we're just going to have a conversation around that, okay? So buckle your seatbelts.
Ready, go.
And let's have the conversazione. Okay, so first off, I feel like we need to demystify why the idea of having it all really perpetuates a broken system. Do you want to begin?
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
Do I want to begin? All right, what brilliance do I have to say about this? So, I mean, as you all know, I feel like my time in fashion really, really, really hits on this.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
It's all of that marketing, all that sales stuff to show you how basically fucked up your life is. And the coaching industry is really good at this. It's really good at showing you how broken you are. Fashion ads are so good at showing you how terrible your body is and how you're not blonde enough.
By exhibiting the perfect ideal.
Exactly. This idea of what's quote unquote perfect.
I'm really glad that
culture.
You brought up the fashion world. I'm so glad you started with that because I feel like that is the industry I feel like that capitalizes on women feeling not enough the most.
Totally. I mean, the whole Photoshop issue.
Oh, yeah.
The manipulation of images to make women look more perfect and more skinny and no thighs touching and all the things and even down to changing the color of their skin and lightening up their hair and changing the colors of their eyes, and it's ridiculous and it keeps us so broken and we continue to feed into it.
Well, what's interesting is that the fashion world is basically run by men.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But the head of all these big magazines, the head of all these big fashion brands, they're men.
Well, I don't know about the heads of them. Like, obviously Vogue is run by a woman. But the heads of almost all of the fashion brands are men.
Well, so it's just an interesting dichotomy. It's just, I don't even know what it means, except that it's just an interesting dichotomy that we have a bunch of men running these companies that are then probably run by women, perpetuating the stigma that women have to look a certain way. So in many ways, they're perpetuating this ideal woman. And because none of us mortals can adhere to this quality of life that we see in the movies and in TV and in the fashion industry, that we immediately feel like we must be broken. Here's a prime example of this. Let's talk about sex for a hot second.
Ooh, I've been waiting for sex to come up. You know, my mom listens to this every week.
We love you, Mama Sealy.
I'm going to get a text right now being like, oh, God.
No, but this is really, really good. If you notice in movies, whenever there is a sex scene, especially by two new people, it always seems pretty fantastic, right? Usually the man orgasms, the woman doesn't. You know, that's not the point of the sex, I guess, is not to have woman feel pleasure. But sometimes they show the woman orgasming as well. But it's usually this perfect instantaneous chemistry, and they get all messy and delicious, and they have erotic sex, and then happily ever after. I mean, most movies depict sex in that way, but in the real world, that's not how it goes almost ever. The first time you have sex with someone, it's uncomfortable.
It's awkward.
You're like staring at each other's
There's
naked bits, and you're like,
insecurities.
right, there's insecurities. Our bodies are not these perfect actresses' bodies. You know,
The lighting isn't perfect.
exactly. The mood isn't always perfect. Our neighbors playing music really loud, right? So
Oh my gosh, my neighbors below me in Washington.
they blew you?
No, below me.
Oh.
My neighbors below me, when I lived in an apartment complex in Washington, I could tell every time they were having sex because they'd play Seal's Kiss by a Rose.
I'm sorry. I can't handle this fact.
That guy was clearly watching a lot of movies.
Okay. Ooh,
I
we're
can't
both
believe I just remembered that.
Bri is like so red right now from laughing.
I'm crying. I'm laughing so
So sex is just one tiny, I think, great way of seeing how this perfect model of what sex is supposed to look like doesn't at all get reflected in the real world. So then you obviously think that you then must be fucked up and wrong and bad because sex is awkward and it's not happening like that for you. Exactly.
Yeah, and the thing that bothers me the most about all this stuff is it's someone else's ideals. Like, it is someone else's ideals, and they are pushing their ideals on you to conform to their ideals.
Yeah.
And so much of the work I do with women is like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, fuck what, the industry says. Fuck what the fashion people are trying. They're trying to sell you. They're trying to get your money.
Yeah.
Fuck all that stuff. And like, what do you want? What works for you?
So then we are led from this belief that we're broken and we're wrong and corrupt and all the stuff into the entrepreneurial scene, where it's very then easy for us to paint our lives in such a way on social media to elicit a desire within other women to want what you have. And that's how we see a lot of women build authority. They have a rags to riches story, If you go to any about page that has the rags to riches story as their number one claim to authority, run the fuck away. Because it's not a real sense of authority. So you have one person have a rags to riches story, and they obviously don't share the outer elements that inspired this rags to riches stories. They only show one aspect of the rags to riches story.
Well, they show the beginning and the end.
Right.
They don't show the middle. Thais and I I'm sure she's mentioned before, there's a story in U Squared where it talks about, like, if you were to walk into the middle of a surgery.
Yes.
That it would look like a murder scene.
Yes.
Right? So a lot of people focus on the, like, before and after.
Because it's inspiring. It's
It
transformational. You see,
it's totally inspiring.
You see people's bodies before and after they work out, and it's so inspiring, and we want that after.
But you don't see the middle shit where it's fucking hard.
And so it's a manipulation. They play on certain unconscious triggers. It's called social triggers. It's these triggers that people are trying to elicit within you to make them feel like an authority, and so then you bite from them. But the reason why this is problematic is because they're selling you a concept that is far removed from your reality. And
anyone's reality.
Yeah.
This idea of
probably
having it
not
all,
even them. They probably don't even exhibit this idea of having it all in the first place.
It's a lie.
It's a
so
lie.
No one has it.
Yeah.
So,
So just be cognitive, start to identify and notice certain social triggers and certain things that are like activating with you the impulse to buy, and check in with yourself if this feels really true and real for you. And we have a whole episode coming up about listening to yourself. It's a really good one. But for this particular conversation, we do want to talk about, okay, so now that we've kind of broken down the idea that you can't have it all, that having it all is a concept that is keeping women perpetually feeling broken, which then makes them want to invest in themselves and buy more clothes and buy more beauty products, which is why the beauty industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So what can we do instead? What's a good way of like dealing with our lives and dealing with our aspirations and our inspirations without this idea of having it all? And that's kind of the bulk of the next kind of section of this conversation, which is now what? And part of the now what is we're going to talk about what balance looks like. We're going to talk about what boundaries look like. And we're going to talk about what a divine hustle looks like, so that at the end of this podcast episode, we hope that you feel a little bit more like you have some more pragmatic steps that you can take to sort of sort out your life so that you feel like you can navigate it and love it and embody it and be present in your life without having it to look any other way.
But before we jump into all of this juicy content, let's hear a little bit more from our sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Industrious. Industrious is redefining co-working with stunning offices across the U.S., inviting hospitality and an inspiring community. Whether you're looking for a 6-person office or shared co-working space, their convenient monthly memberships can accommodate your business needs.
Industrious members enjoy 24-hour access to their locations, breakfast and coffee served daily, affordable parking, and a tentative staff on site. You can visit industriousoffice.com to tour a location near you. And you can get a free week of premium co-working at their LA location when you mention Be Amplified.
All right, welcome back to Be Amplified,
the podcast
with Bri
and Thais. Dun dun dun. Okay, so
we're gonna start off like Thais just said before the commercial break.
We feel
We
so
sound
fancy
so
right
fancy.
now. I know. We're like two little girls right now, being like, "Oh my god!" Although we're very mature and
Grounded,
sophisticated,
wise
wise women who is humbled and grateful for Industrious. All right, let's move on.
And we're back. So topic number 1 when it comes to having it all or not having it all is balance.
Okay, so first off, I know that there's kind of two pools of people. I don't believe in balance. I believe that we should just focus on what's in front of you. Like, fuck balance, right? So that's the one pool. And the other pool is, I definitely believe that there can be a balance. It just looks different every single day. And you kind of have to go with that.
I love that you just now using your voice didn't discriminate against one or the other. They were the same voice.
They were the same voice.
That was good.
Yeah, because I feel like both, even though I chose to put on the Valley Girl accent for some odd reason, I'm not condemning those two pools of thought. I just want to separate them for you. So I don't know. I feel like somewhere in the middle is kind of the right approach to balance, and maybe it's different for each person who's listening. But one thing is true is that when you're fully engaged in your work, why would you consciously unengage yourself and then add something else to your life that doesn't inspire you? Does that make sense?
That. No.
It's like if I'm like in this flow, let's say in my business, and I'm just finding like, just let's say on a Monday or whatever, on a Tuesday, I'm in flow with my business and I'm feeling good. I'm being creatively inspired right now. I'm writing a lot. And then I suddenly think, shit, I have to balance. I have to exercise today because working 10 hours at my desk isn't healthy. And so then you get up and you break that flow and then you go work out. I mean, that could be the concept of balance, because maybe working 10 hours a day isn't necessarily healthy. But if you're in that creative flow, why would you break that to add something else in? Does that make sense?
Kind of. So the way that I see balance is that, I look at about 8 different areas of my life. And the way I see it is that you can't give 100% in every single area. In the moment, you can. Like right now, in this moment, I'm giving 100% to this podcast. But, in 3 hours, when we're done podcasting, I can't give 100% to the podcast because then obviously, anyways. So I look at it on a grander scale of my day, like how can I allocate, you know, if I have, say, 10 pieces of the pie, how can I allocate my day to spend time and attention in each of those areas? So, you know, maybe 10% goes here and 15% goes there, like what that looks like. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like just the entire concept of balance stems from the broken idea of having it all.
I think it depends on how you approach balance. Like,
I don't even know what having a balanced life would even look like. I mean,
for me, like I said, it's making sure that I'm not just addressing my business, but I'm also addressing my heart, and I'm also addressing my physical body, and I'm also addressing my health, and I'm also addressing my relationships.
But don't you feel like that can
that.
easily turn into like a laundry list of like things that you have to do every day?
Oh yeah, no, it is. I mean, the relationship section, thanks to Thais, is always at like 90%. Just kidding. It is a laundry list.
I mean, I don't know. I get the.
And so this isn't to say too that I touch on every aspect every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to do yoga tonight. So tomorrow morning when I get up, I'm probably not going to do yoga again. So my physical movement tomorrow might not be as high as it was today, but that doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like what you focus on grows. If you're focusing on well, what am I trying to say? This is so good that we're having this conversation because I feel like we're still navigating what it looks like for us.
So I think focus to me comes more in the moment. So balance is more of like a bigger picture thing to me, where focus is more like, you know, and actually focus and attention is one of the major things that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
So for me, I think focus comes more in the now.
Yeah.
Where balance comes more either on a day or a week or a month kind of a level.
What if balance was really just an energy of feeling like you're living a holistic life no matter what you're doing in the moment? Like maybe that's what a balance is. Maybe balance is an internal temperature where no matter what you're doing in your life, you can flow with the grace of life because you're feeling whole within yourself. For example, when I used to obsess over my body and obsess over my weight and obsess over exercising, if I went on vacation, I felt so off-center because I didn't have my regimented food schedule. I didn't have my regimented workout schedule. And then I immediately felt fat and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if being regimented was balanced, and I don't know. I don't think that being regimented was balanced. And I know that being off regimented didn't feel like balance either. But I think the work that I've done to get myself to a point where I'm not addicted to food, I'm not addicted to exercise, has led me to now be able to flow with the need for my body to move, but also if I'm on vacation, to not feel that pressure to move. So maybe that to me feels like a better way of describing balance, like an internal capacity to flow and move with life while still maintaining a sense of wholeness within yourself.
Absolutely. And, you know, I guess I just take it a little bit more tangibly. Maybe it's the Taurus in me.
Maybe. But it's good that we both have different kind of perspectives.
Yeah, where I just like to look, like I sat down for the month of March and was like, okay, you know, here's my top core values. How am I integrating each of these into my month? And so one of my top core values is pleasure. And so I went to see a dance performance last night. I have theater tickets later on this month. Thais and I just went to the theater. I'm going to an art museum later on this month. I'm traveling to see my family. Like, so I categorize all that stuff under pleasure, and then it's just integrating that stuff. And you know, this aerial yoga thing that I'm obsessed with now has become a part of that as well, has become a part of pleasure. So making sure that I'm committing to go experience that twice a week, and that feels balanced to me. But then, of course, to my work, which we all know is a huge focus for both of us.
Yeah.
But
so maybe you're talking about a balanced life, and I'm talking about a balanced being. So maybe it's an integration of both of them. So what's really cool about how Bri and I kind of work together in our coaching experiences is that we have such a oftentimes different way of looking at things that we can really create a more holistic experience for our clients, which is what I'm really excited about for the Amplified Woman. Just an opportunity to get both perspectives, and then you get to decide and see what lands for you, what works for you. It's something that I think is very, very unique about this program is our two different experiences and perspective. You have my Gemini, you have her Taurus.
Oh God,
it's good stuff. good stuff.
I don't know if I would call it that good, but
Hey, it's very good.
it's challenging on a personal level.
Well, just for you.
Oh, bullshit.
I'm
Bullshit.
I'm just helping you, unground a little bit. Get into...
Oh, bullshit.
Okay, so...
topic number 2, boundaries. I love
yeah.
boundaries.
Yeah, this was a big one. We had a dinner party a couple weeks ago, and we talked about screwing the hustle, and this was a big one where people expressed, well, I don't know when my life ends and my business begins, and my business ends and my life begins, and it's also intermeshed, that I find myself working all the time, and I don't really know how to separate the two, and how, if I want to separate the two. And
the thing about that for me is that if you are working all the time and if you don't have those boundaries, then, like I was talking about just before, the other areas of your life get neglected.
Right.
Your relationships suffer, your body goes to shit, you stop eating right, you like all those things. And so for me, this is a huge part of balance, is having boundaries and being able to say, no, I'm putting my foot down. I cannot work anymore today.
Yeah.
I need to add in movement or food or this or that or whatever.
And part of having effective boundaries is not like a one-time thing. It's a continual commitment and decision to being unapologetic about your values and about what's important to you in that moment. And this unapologeticness is a lot of what we're going to be diving into in The Amplified Woman, because it's easy to say, well, you should have boundaries around this, and you should be able to communicate this with people and whatever. But it's a lot harder when we feel bad or sorry, or we feel like we're letting people down because we're people pleasers and we don't know how to navigate that. Like, this is why we're putting together the 6-month program, is because we understand that boundary setting is extremely difficult for women, especially since we love to give and we have such a hard time receiving. We have such a hard time asking for what we want. We're just much more likely to do it ourselves, and then we feel like the whole weight of the world is on our shoulders, and we can't trust our husbands with our children, so we never let our children out of our sight, and then we feel burnt out. It's a whole spiral of things, and it's not working. So anyway, I just thought it was important to acknowledge that The Amplified Woman is really, really going to be diving into this.
Yeah, I mean, I love boundaries. Do you know one of my favorite words?
No.
Yep.
Boundaries is one of your favorite words?
No is my favorite word.
Oh, no.
You had it right the first time.
Yeah.
I love really...
That's
like,
because you're an only child.
Even, well...
I mean, we love you, Michaela.
I have a sister. I was an only child for 10 years. So the foundation of my personality was really cemented around the time that I was an only child.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love telling people no. I do.
Okay,
I
but
really
can you explain a little bit more about that? Like, why, or how you developed that confidence to say no, or like,
well, it
what's
did take
a tip?
A while.
Yeah.
It did take a little while because, like you said, the whole people pleasing thing.
Yeah.
But I really started to identify that if I was going to be fulfilled in my life, that I had to stand up for what I needed, who I am, what works best for me, and like really just close the door on things that didn't work for me. And so
how did you develop that skill?
That's a good question. I don't actually know. How does... I feel like we talk about this periodically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so in the work that I do around saying no and around people pleasing, is first you got to really understand that people pleasing is derived from a deep desire to be loved and to feel safe. So we want people to love us, and we were willing to do anything to get that love, probably because that's how we received love in our childhood. By being nice to mommy, we get mommy's love and attention. And that kind of supported us into our adulthood of, well, if I just, say yes to all these things, then I'm going to be loved. I'm going to feel useful. I'm going to feel needed. And I'm going to get that love that I want. The problem is you're sacrificing your own love, your self-love, your capacity to be an autonomous human being when we're so addicted and attached to other people's need to validate us. So part of the work is recognizing where your people-pleasing tendency comes from, and actually viscerally feeling the emotion in your body of that wanting to be loved and the fear of letting people down. And then begin to untangle that and start to step into the possibility of what if you can practice saying no in just the small things and start working that muscle of saying no to things that, you know, don't really matter to begin with, and then taking that to the next level and start saying yes or saying no in bigger and bigger ways.
Yeah, I think part of it for me came really when I started feeling super confident standing on my own, and like really just felt this, like, I guess, inner sense of power and peace and just confidence that I could say no to someone, and even if they were upset about it, it wouldn't like necessarily affect me.
Yeah, when you can start putting yourself first in even the smallest ways. And putting yourself first doesn't mean you take bubble baths and ignore your screaming children. It doesn't mean that you, right, totally ignore your responsibilities. It's more of an energetic decision that your needs and what's coming up for you is of utmost importance, and it's even more important than the needs and what's coming up to other people. And this is a really, really hard thing for most of us, because we have this amazing capacity of not being comfortable with other people's uncomfortability. So the minute someone hurts our feelings and you know, we immediately go to, oh, it's okay, it's not a big deal, like you didn't know any better, you know, we instantly go to the kind of like that fake forgiveness mode because we can't stand the possibility of them being upset. That's what.
Let me give you a real life example of this.
Sure.
So the week before I left for Bali, I'd been seeing this guy, and I knew that I didn't want to see him any longer. And so the day I was leaving for Bali, I called him and I was like, hey, just wanted to talk to you. Like, I don't really feel like this is working out, and I don't think we should see each other when I get back. And he was like, no, but it's still early. Like, it's fine. We can hang out when you get back, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I totally stepped down. Like, I totally was not in my power. I backed off and I was like, yeah, okay.
I mean, this is a great example of you not being able to hold space for his uncomfortable and heartbreak and his negative experience. So you are willing to sacrifice yourself and your needs and your well-being for this other person. We do this constantly.
That's totally what happened. Like, I wasn't willing to stand up for myself enough and deal with his disappointment and his hurt. Yeah. And so I just backed down from what I knew to be true in my heart.
So a lot of times we have a really hard time holding other people's emotions and allowing them to be in whatever experience they're having without making it be about us, because we can't even hold our own experiences, because we have a hard time holding on to our hurt, our disappointments, our fears. And so the work that I do with my clients is I really support them in creating a self-sustainability within themselves, of being able to have a container to hold their sadness, their anger, their grief, the natural experiences of the human life, of this human beingness that we all are. And when you can start to hold, access, hold, and love and be in tender care of our hearts, we're then much more likely to be strong within ourselves when somebody else wants something of us that risks our values or, puts us in a position of a space that we don't want to be in. It's really cool work. I'm fucking fascinated with this shit. But
so let's talk quickly about a really applicable thing for female, for entrepreneurs in general. So this was something that I dealt with a lot at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, is this idea of taking every coffee meeting that gets offered to you, or taking every outreach.
I love what you did in this article. Would you be willing to have a cup of coffee with me? I just want to pick your brain and just think, how did you do it?
So let me give you a little secret. If you are committing to live life as a whole life entrepreneur, you are going to have boundaries. Because if you are taking all of your focus and putting, your balance, your off balance, and you're saying yes to all of these things, you are not going to have the time in your life to address your business desires, do the physical movement that you want, all the things that we just talked about in balance. And so I feel like balance and boundaries go hand in hand. You are not going to be able to find balance in your life if you are not setting boundaries, if you are not saying no, if you are not just standing for what's important in your life.
One thing that I have seen people do is they create like a 1 hour session for like whatever, like let's just say $50. And if they get an invitation, I would love to pick your brain, to respond with, this is actually a service that I offer. It's specifically pick your brain for an hour session for $50. If you're interested, here's a link to sign up. And so it can help you be a little bit more clear on your boundaries, to know that even if you're a health coach and you don't do, let's say, business coaching, and someone wants to know what you did for that awesome webinar, do you remember how much effort and time it took for you to learn how to do what you did to get to where you are? That's valuable. That's a valuable information and lessons that you've learned. And it's important that you honor that, and you honor yourself, and you honor the fact that you've done a lot of work to get to where you are. So give them the session, but charge them for it. At least it will make you feel like you're being validated for your information.
Yeah, so whole life entrepreneur requires boundaries and balance.
So one thing that's really interesting is when you start to do the internal work that I've talked about earlier, and you start being able to hold a space for yourself, and you start feeling more grounded and embodied in your being, and like Bri said, like feeling just more confident in your no, it's amazing at how the people that you attract just naturally start to honor those boundaries. I get the question a lot. Of how are you friends with your clients? Do you hang out with your clients outside of work? They're really cool people. Like, my client invited me to go to happy hour with her. All these things where it can get so blurry if you're a coach or a healer in some capacity to, and mesh your life with your client. And what's interesting is I've literally have never even had that problem, simply because I just have such clear boundaries with my clients. So that's not to say that I don't hang out with my clients on a friend's capacity, but then they're just so respectful of what that boundary looks like that I don't have to define it for them. But that's because I've spent so many years defining that boundary for myself that now it's not even a problem in my life anymore. So it's a great way for you to see just a general temperature of where you are in your boundaries, is just start to notice what boundary issues are coming up in your life, because somehow you've allowed that to happen. And then you can start to take action on which of these, boundary issues are you going to start tackling first.
And last but not least, the third thing we are going to talk about in relation to not having it all is the divine hustle.
Okay, talk to me about it.
So this was the big conversation on my side of the table a few weeks ago at our dinner party. We talked a lot about, this whole idea that hustle is bad, and Thais and I very much disagree with the hustle. If you're working 18 hours a day, you should not get a medal for it. You should get a lobotomy. So Thais and I do not believe in the hustle. So we had a whole dinner conversation about it at one of our Amplify Dines events. And my side of the table was very, very much into, well, this idea of hustle can be bad. It can look bad. And it's also still very important as entrepreneurs. Like, when Thais and I are in work mode, we're fucking hustling. Like, we kick ass. When we, do podcast recording days, we're in the fucking hustle. But the difference is we bring in the divinity. So what does that mean? We use spirit, we use inspiration, we use our intuitions, we use guides to support us in showing us what to hustle on. Because if you're trying to hustle in every area of your life with a to-do list a million miles long, you are only going to spin yourself into a tizzy.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between kind of taking action because you feel like you should, and it's not really exciting or inspiring, but you feel like you need to do it, versus when you're in that flow, in that creative space where you're just feeling so inspired and activated and driven, and you can sit in front of your computer for hours and hours and hours, like I was talking about earlier, right? There's such a difference. And that's not to say that you can only take action when you're feeling inspired. That's not to say that you need to, if you're feeling uninspired at whatever project or work that you're doing, then you should just give up and call it quits. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that if you find yourself going against the flow of your creativity every day, time after time, hour after hour, and you're burning yourself out because of it, then there's an opportunity for you to investigate what you need to shift. Maybe you need to shift your perspective on it, or maybe you need to shift the actual actions that you're taking, but something needs to change.
I will give you an example of this. So 2 years ago, as I was just kind of getting into the coaching world, I was sold a very big and expensive webinar package. It was all about getting, bigger visibility, being able to sell your coaching, blah, blah, blah. And the whole thing was teaching you how to do funnels, basically. And everything in my body screamed, no. No, 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 this isn't who I am. This isn't what I do. This isn't my message. Doesn't work for me, blah, blah, blah. And I did it anyways. And I spent a good amount of money on this training. And I never really ended up finishing it because it was just so unaligned. And I kept trying to force it. If I worked harder at it, then it would work. If I put in more hours, if I just re-record my webinar, then it's going to work. And ended up just burning myself out massively because I was doing all these things in my business that everyone else was like, if you want to succeed, you have to have a funnel. And if you want to succeed, you have to do a webinar. And if you want to, I was listening to all of the voices of all the other people as opposed to checking in with myself. So this is a lot of what Thais and I go into in the Amplified Woman.
So good.
Which we highly, highly, highly promote for, anyone we meet, anytime we do a talk. It's this idea of unbusinessing.
Yeah.
So fuck what the industry says. Fuck the 6 steps to 6 figures. Like all of this stuff that we're sold. Again, teaching you that you're broken. Your business is broken. You're not doing things right. And in order to do things to get the money that you want, you're going to have to do it the way that everyone else does it.
Here's the thing. What's so interesting is that the leaders of the entrepreneurial industry are leaders because they did something radically different. They did something completely wackadoodly different than what anything else was being done. They got success in it. Then people started following them. Then people started teaching what they did. And then it's now the thing that everybody is doing. And I mean, why be in business if you're just going to do exactly what everyone else is doing?
I have been getting a lot of questions lately about my Facebook group. So some of you might know I made 6 figures off of a Facebook group in 90 days last year. And I've been getting a lot of questions about how'd you do it? And should I do it? And maybe I should start a challenge and all these things. And I will tell people exactly how I did it. And I will say, there's a good chance that this might not work for you.
Yeah.
If you are just trying to do this methodology without checking to see, is it right for me? If you're just doing this methodology to make the money and to, whatever, it is probably not going to work the way that it worked for me.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to be diving a lot more into this in the Amplified Woman and creating new systems and structures in place in your life and in your business so that...
And sorry, I'm not meaning to interrupt you. I try so hard not to interrupt, but it's less even about the systems and structures and more about doing the inner work
right,
to
that's what I mean.
figure out what works for you.
Yeah, like putting the internal systems and structures in place so that you start to be able to naturally gravitate and build and do on the outside what feels aligned on the inside.
Yeah, so that you can be led by that, just like that inner knowing of what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. I mean, intuition is my favorite fucking thing in the world.
Totally. So the whole premise of this podcast, I guess, is 1, you can't have it all. Get over it. Get over the idea of it,
Unfollow Kylie Jenner. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a real big problem when we're selling the idea of having it all to other women. So really know if you're doing that because you feel like you have to do that because other people are doing that. You don't have to do that.
And identify where that's working for you, where you're falling into that trap of I see other people trying to sell me to have it all. How am I feeling broken? How am I feeling the need to buy into this?
Yeah. Yeah, and start to practice this thing called self-acceptance to whatever area of your life feels a little subpar. Maybe you don't feel sexy in what you look like, right? Your body type or whatever. You have to ask yourself, why don't I feel sexy? It's probably because society's telling you what sexy is supposed to look like. It's time for you to create a new way of a new perspective of your life that fits to what's right for you. And maybe your body type is exactly what's right for you. and fuck what society says. And I know it's so much easier said than done. I get it. I've had eating issues, for a very long time. I totally get that what we're saying here is very, vanilla, or not vanilla.
Well, it's like
basic.
we're talking about the end perspective. Like
Right.
we didn't all get to see or experience or witness Thais's middle.
Yeah.
We didn't get to experience the middle of the surgery for her where it looked like the murder room,
Yeah. So we really, really, really do get it. And we don't have it all. And we're still figuring it out every single day. But we have found some things that are working. We are finding that if you create a foundation of spiritual truths and purpose and movement in your body and healthy relationships in your life, that your business just naturally thrives. Like, we're finding that when you can unbusiness your business and really focus on creating something that feels authentically yourself and not like what everyone else is telling you to do, your business flourishes. We're finding that organic growth is better than fast growth. We're learning that 6 figures doesn't mean that you're rich. 6 figures doesn't mean anything. It just means $100,000, right, or more. But what really, really matters is the heart and the energy of which you are pouring your life and your experiences into. And, there's just another depth to entrepreneurship that we're finding is healing us and is inviting us to step into a holistic life experience. And that's what we want for you as well.
Well, and the radical notion of, are you ready?
What?
The more you thrive as a woman, the more your business will thrive.
Yes.
We so often, in putting other people's needs before ours, we also often put our business before our needs.
Yeah.
And if we're not doing well as humans, as women in the world, of course our business is going to suffer.
Yeah.
So we are openly inviting women to be part of this 6-month journey with us to really get down to the heart of what works for your business, what works for you, who are you, what are you creating in the world, and yeah.
So you can learn more at www.theamplifycollective.com/incubator. We are accepting applications until April 7th, so you do have a little bit of time to consider if this feels right for you. And, we'll hop on the phone with you. We'll talk it out. We'll see if this feels like a good fit for you. We don't want this to be something that doesn't align with you. So, of course, we spend that time on the phone getting to know you. We're excited to learn more about you and learn about your life and your business. And you can check us out at www.theamplifycollective.com/incubator.
And before we wrap up, we have to do one more shout out and thank you to Industrious for being an amazing sponsor. We love you. We are doing an event with them and we cannot wait. And as usual, if you would like to find us on all the socials, you can type in The Amplify Co, THE Amplify Co, and come jam with us on the interwebs.
We will talk to you all soon.